And now, it's time for a Star Trek story. We've certainly talked about the Star Trek ethos before on this show. And, there's actually like a few little monos. We've talked about a few, like Where No Man Has Gone Before. And we've also talked about infinite diversity and infinite combination is also one that we've talked about. And longtime Star Trek fans will know that one of the classic ones is logic clearly dictates that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Or the one.
Yes, classic logical, trolley problem stuff. So this leads to my question for today, though. Do the needs of the one ever outweigh the needs of the many?
Depends on the few.
It depends on the few or the one. Context. There you go, folks. Context.
But who decides?
Depends on who's on those trolley tracks. And
what if the many decide that one is more important than what?
Yeah, certainly the context, I guess. Though I guess probably in most situations, the needs of the many would probably still outweigh the needs of the few, but you do have to find some sort of balance, I would imagine.
Why not just kirk it and cut the power to the train, and then everybody lives?
Cheat.
Problem solved. Yeah, think outside the box. I wouldn't call it cheating.
Did anyone consider pulling the brake?
Perhaps not pulling the lever at all.
We have cars now.
No need to use a train.
We don't even need to use the trolley. There you go. Don't even use the trolley. Yeah, certainly the context, though I guess it's always interesting to see in which context would the needs of the few or the one be more important than the needs of the many. A question I'm sure we will get into on this week's episode of Star Trek Stories.
Thank you. The dozens of you.
The dozens of you listening. Yes, this is episode 45, I, Borg. I, of course, am your singular host, Jaron Hatch, and I'm joined here by my multitudinous host, Aaron Cole.
I contain multitudes.
Yes. Between Jaron's singularity and Aaron's multitudes, who bounds those needs, we are starting to wind down our look at the TNG Glory Years. Last time we watched The First Duty, where our good friend Ellen came on to help us chastise Wesley Crusher for being a naughty boy.
A naughty boy.
And getting one of his friends killed. Naughty boy. Yeah. Bad, Wesley, bad.
Oh, did I stay in my Starfleet career forever?
Yes, you did, Wesley.
Once
again. This week we have another returning guest on with us. Sitting next to me, once again, we have the very lovely Jennie Beal on the show. Hello. Did you do your own cheering over there?
Yes.
The Coliseum.
Are you not entertained? How are you today, baby?
I'm good, but I want to know if you are singular and if Aaron contains multitudes, where does that leave me?
Yeah, what's Jennie's thing? Jennie
is such a complex and nuanced person.
3 frogs in a trench coat?
Yes.
I thought I heard a ribbit. I swear to God. I'm not.
Yeah, welcome back to the show, my lovely baby.
Thank you.
I always love having you on. For those who are new to the podcast, don't know, may have guessed, Jennie is my best friend and romantic partner. And we get into all sorts of shenanigans with each other. Yeah. Last time you were on, we watched The Batman for Nerd Movies, where you were our voice of sanity and reason as to why that movie might not be all that it's cracked up to be.
Always the critic.
Did not
like it.
No.
But we are, of course, talking about Star Trek today. And when we first met, you had never seen Star Trek.
Yeah.
I introduced you to it. When we first started dating, I had like a 50 episode list basically like the must-see Star Trek episodes from across the franchise. I did it in conjunction with like the 50th anniversary, and that's basically what we watched, just a giant sampling of like everything.
And then he untied you from the radiator and you were allowed to go home.
Yeah, so you are now, I would, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are now like a casual Star Trek fan.
Yes.
But you're not really a sci-fi fan. It's not like, not a sci-fi fan, but it's not really your jam, generally speaking, I would say, yes?
I don't really seek it out.
Yeah.
What do you seek? What do you seek? What is your quest? Like media-wise, do you like historical fiction? Do you like...
I like documentaries.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say mostly documentaries. I like animated, like cartoons.
Do you have HBO? You guys have HBO?
Mm-hmm.
There's a new one called Scavenger's Reign.
Scavenger's Reign.
I binged it in maybe like 3 days. It was wild. It's so good. I'm still kind of figuring out what it was all about. But.
I really like dramas and mysteries, and so I do think I like those aspects of Star Trek.
The drama and mystery of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, you coming on, because we had even tried Doctor Who, and I was like, because I also am a big Doctor Who fan. I could probably also start a companion podcast called Doctor Who Stories. Just tackle that one.
Talk about a podcast for decades to come.
Right.
Content.
Yeah, because I love Doctor Who. I was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe you'll like it, just because like I know you like spooky stuff, and there is like spooky stuff in Doctor Who, though it's also very silly. But that never really, we gave it a good few seasons, but that never really took for you.
No, it didn't stick. I don't think it had the same emotional, like, it just wasn't as intellectually stimulating as Star Trek can be.
I would say Doctor Who definitely, if there is a spectrum of more thinky and more feely, Doctor Who is more on a feely than a thinky scale. Though I think, they'll both. But I remember there were some episodes you're like, yeah, I like that one. But for the most part, you're like, it's so...
I just fucking hate the Daleks.
Oh, that's right. There's the Daleks that killed it. We are back again. Oh,
that's your nemesis?
God.
I didn't like any of the...
Cybermen didn't do it for you?
No. Oh, God.
No, truth be told, a lot of the big enemies are
I
like
hated
the goofiest
all
ones.
Yeah, the Doctor Who enemies were so obnoxious to me.
So, yeah, Doctor Who didn't take, but you do like Star Trek. I'm curious, and you've already mentioned like drama and mystery. What is it about Star Trek? I don't know. What does Star Trek have that, say, maybe some like other sci-fi out there doesn't really have for you?
A plethora of thought experiments.
A plethora of thought experiments. That's true. Just like the Think You Think, what would you do in this kind of situation? Philosophical drama episodes.
And Jean-Luc Picard.
And once again, shout out to Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard.
Cash just bought his book. Is it called Make It So, I think?
Oh.
Make It So.
There's like a whole section in the middle that's just pictures from throughout his theater days and stuff. It's awesome.
He's a handsome devil in Star Trek, but in some of his younger Shakespeare days, very handsome devil.
Chiseled features.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just sharp.
He's got that classic British leading man look and voice. Yeah, Jean-Luc Picard. I don't know if I've ever asked you this. So Next Generation, would you call that your favorite of all the Star Treks that you've seen? Because you've seen a whole bunch.
Yeah, I've seen the most of it, though. I've liked all of... I was about to say I've liked all of the seasons I've seen. I think that's true. I think I've liked pretty much all of
most of it.
Classic Star Trek.
Oh, the 60s stuff too? Or just all
I don't know what I'm saying. All the ones before they started coming out with hundreds of new ones every 5 seconds.
We'll get the folks modern Star Trek. Yeah, Patrick Stewart and Think You Think Thought Experiment episodes. Very appropriate for this episode. What do you think, speaking to our question? Do the needs of the one ever outweigh the needs of the many?
It depends on what the needs are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to say it, but yeah, I feel like the what the needs are really matters, because sometimes one person's needs are vastly more important or inflexible than the group.
Right.
And I feel like that's why you have things like, what are they called? It's like these like representation minimums in certain areas of politics.
Sure.
Where the whole reason you have them is because the needs of the few are important and are overlooked.
Yeah.
And the needs of the many do not really actually outweigh
Right.
the need of the few in that situation, because the need of the many is not to maintain the status quo. Like, that's not that important. I don't know.
Right. If there's like, one person dying on the street.
And everyone else just doesn't want to be inconvenienced.
Right. And
I
9
think
other
the dying
people are going to
person
be late
matters
for
more.
work.
Yeah, that's what
But
I'm
there's
talking
9 of
about.
us.
So if we all walk by, did it even happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It
back
did.
to context.
Yeah, back to context. Yeah. Yeah, certainly. I mean, probably the biggest thing, because you brought up, certainly representation of politics. That's an obvious kind of thing for me is like, yes, certainly because, if there was no looking out for the minority or the one, it's like, then you can really quickly have a tyranny of the, majority, real quick. So it's important that everyone's needs are met in the most equitable way possible. So sometimes those ratios can change.
But I would say, generally speaking, if the needs of the many are equal to the need of the few, then yes, I don't think there's any way logically
Yeah. All things being
out of
equal.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Well, let's see if this episode gives us any more to think about, at least in terms of if the needs of the one ever outweigh the needs of the many. Yes, today we are watching Borg. This premiered May 11th, 1992. This is the 23rd episode produced for the 5th season, which also makes it our last episode from this season for our 100 episode list. And as the title suggests, this episode features the return of the Borg. The first time they've come back since our big Borg two-parter, Best of Both Worlds, where Captain Picard gets assimilated by the Borg and is forced to lead an attack against Earth and the Federation and all that good stuff. And at the end of that, he does get rescued. But in the following episode, Family, we definitely see like the depth of the trauma that experience causes him, and kind of left with this like, yeah, this is going to be with you for a long time, Jean-Luc, like his brother tells him. And it does pop up every now and again, of course, in the rest of the Star Trek, The Next Generation, and beyond. And that's one thing we're going to be looking at that. It does make a comeback in this episode. So that'll definitely be one thing we're looking at in this one. How the show revisits his trauma, how it looks at trauma in general. And then speaking to the Borg, the Borg, we've talked about, they are basically the big bad of the show and probably the franchise at large if you had to pick one. And the writers had always wanted to bring them back, but they weren't sure how to revisit them without kind of watering down the threat they pose, because they built them up to be like this impossible to beat adversary. And then like in the last episode, they just managed to beat them, but it was like, if we just bring them back and just have them beat him again, then are they really all that scary anymore? So they were always trying to figure out how can we bring them back and make it interesting and not water down the threat they pose. And so that'll be the other kind of thing we look at in this one, how successful they are in bringing back the Borg in this episode. All right, for those of you at home who are going to watch along with us, Star Trek The Next Generation is streaming on Paramount Plus. You can find it by bringing up Season 5, Episode 23, and we will be back after we watch Borg.
Locutus.
Yes. I am Locutus of Borg.
Why are you here?
This is a primitive culture. I am here to facilitate its incorporation. Identify yourself.
Hugh.
Identify yourself.
We are Hugh.
This is not a Borg identification.
Third of 5.
This culture will be assimilated.
They do not wish it.
Irrelevant.
They will resist us.
Resistance is futile.
Resistance is not futile. Some have escaped.
They will be found. It is inevitable. All will be assimilated.
Must Geordi be assimilated?
Yes.
He does not wish it. He would rather die than be assimilated.
Then he will die.
No. Geordi must not die. Geordi is a friend.
You will assist us to assimilate this vessel. You are Borg. You will assist us.
I will not.
What did you say?
I will not assist you. Geordi must not be assimilated.
But you are Borg.
No. I am Hugh.
We just got done watching Borg. In case you didn't watch this one with us or haven't seen it before, in this one, the crew of the Enterprise, they find a crashed Borg scout ship with a sole survivor, a Borg teenager, who they bring aboard and kind of nurse back to health. Picard realizes this is a potential chance to use the Borg drone to basically infect the Borg with something to destroy them. So while they're kind of working with the Borg, trying to figure out a way to do that, particularly Dr. Crusher and Geordi, they're spending a lot more time with the Borg, and he is starting to kind of awaken his sense of individuality, and they start having second thoughts about it. And meanwhile, Picard and Guinan are like, no, this is a Borg. We have to destroy it. But even Guinan comes over once she talks to the Borg, and eventually the Borg gets a name, Hugh, and eventually Picard talks to the Borg and realizes, wow, yeah, it's an individual. We can't just use it to kill the Borg. So in the end, they return Hugh back to the collective. Consensually, he's the one that says, you have to send me back, otherwise they're going to come after you, even though he doesn't want to because he's regained his sense of individuality. And the episode ends with him going back to the Borg collective. Wacky, wild stuff. We always start with initial thoughts. Jennie, initial thoughts coming on off of Borg.
I thought it was great. I almost cried 3 times.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very thought-provoking and emotional. Very interesting. I was anxious most of the time, wondering how they were going to resolve the issue and whether they should. And yeah. I'm
curious what parts almost brought you to tears. Do you remember?
I think the part where I think Beverly was saying that he was lonely. And then again, when he reflected that back to Guinan and told Guinan that she was lonely.
Mm-hmm. You are lonely.
And then also the part near the end when Picard was talking to Hugh, and Hugh was sharing all his realizations about, resistance not being futile, and, but they don't want to be assimilated. That all made me very emotional too.
We can't also forget the, aren't you lonely? Yeah, sometimes. That's why we have friends, to keep us company. Like Hugh and Geordi.
Oh, that one too. Yeah.
Heart-wrenching. And I would choose to stay with Geordi. And then he realizes he can't.
Can't. You always feel like in that, because Geordi's there when the Borg when Hugh returns to the ship, and there's that 1 second where Hugh kind of looks at him, almost like he's going to say something.
Little Inception moment.
Yeah, and Geordi's like, almost like he's like, I changed my mind. Awesome. Aaron, initial thoughts coming off of Borg.
It's always funny how quickly some Starfleet officers put aside the ideals and the mission statement to other races very quickly, especially when they're the adversary or the enemy.
Yeah, at the beginning, the only one who is really in the Borg and Hugh's corner at the beginning is Beverly. Everyone's like, even Troy's like, well, they declared war on us. Like,
right?
They're all pretty gung ho about. They're all on board, and only Beverly at the beginning is kind of like. Even Data doesn't really raise a stink about it. Only Beverly does, and by the end, everyone's like, okay.
That doesn't seem very true to Star Trek. To me, it feels more like a plot device than something that I think would actually be reflected in other episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that doesn't feel like Picard. I mean, I think part of the point is that, Picard's traumatized by the Borg, but the fact that Beverly was the only person to be like, hey, maybe we should think about this. This seems pretty serious. Like, that just feels like that is not what these characters would actually do.
Yeah, it's interesting because up till now, the Borg have only been portrayed as almost like a force of nature. There's just this collective hive mind that is just, no matter what, they're going to keep coming for you, and they're just going to assimilate you. It's like, and there's like no reasoning with them. There's you can't do anything with them, and they were like this close to destroying Earth and the Federation. They barely got out of that situation.
There have been so many other hard situations they've been put in, though, to make terrible decisions. And there is a lot of reflection around it, though. And also, I was like, Picard didn't even, shoot a message to his supervisor and be
Admiral.
like, hey, what do you think about me, destroying all the Borg on this little, rogue mission I just made up?
Yeah.
No consultation.
Yeah, he's flying completely blind. As far as we see, he doesn't even try to contact Starfleet about just build a weapon of mass destruction and kill the Borg and be done with it. Thank you.
I do think it's a great story, but that element I do feel like feels a little incongruent with, like, you're talking about all these other, the principles, the ethics of Star Trek that they're normally pretty good at upholding.
Yeah, certainly this crew.
Yeah.
We didn't even consult Chain of Command on this one? No?
I don't think there's one scene where they even let Starfleet know we found the Borg. Nah, just kill them. I mean, it is a kind of shocking scene because I don't think we've ever seen a scene like that in all our watching it where they're just like all pretty much essentially on the same page with genocide, except for Beverly.
And had they found the Borg completely dead instead of dying, do you think that would have changed? Do you think Beverly's opinion would have changed? Like that, it just flipped her brain into doctor mode. Like, I have to save this thing.
Like if they somehow could send like a Borg corpse back with like the same invasive program, like would she care as much then? It does get into some interesting questions. I mean, I guess we should start really with basically Hugh. he was the central focus of this episode. This is the first time the show has ever tried to humanize the Borg in any way. Like I said, they've basically just been in the first couple appearances. They've just been as, oh my God, like doomsday is coming, and they're all for you. They've been basically just like a soulless hive mind up to this point. Do we think this episode is this successful at kind of humanizing them to some degree? And if so, does humanizing kind of defang them a little bit? Does it add some nuance? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Adds a little nuance. It actually makes him a little more terrifying. The fact that the personality is still in that husk somewhere, just dormant.
They haven't really explored that before. I mean, like, kind of with Picard, but even when they assimilated Picard, it was still almost contextualized. It's like they assimilated him for some special reason, because Picard is like a quasi-individual when he's assimilated, because they need him to be a spokesperson. And then they just unsimulate him. But all the other Borg have just been mindless drones.
Yeah.
And so Hugh's the first time it's like, oh, they're all people under there. They have not explored that at all yet, and it is kind of terrifying. It's almost like, they rather than just kind of just being like complete automatons, it's almost like there's some living hell going on where they're all,
or maybe a living heaven. The way that Hugh describes it, it doesn't sound like he's being tortured at all. He misses it. He's yearning for it. Doesn't understand why anybody else wouldn't want that, right?
Right. I mean, loneliness. I mean, that comes up a few times in this, and how lonely he is because he doesn't hear the voices of the others. And I think most humans would agree that one of the worst human experiences is loneliness. I think most people would agree that is the case. I mean, so living in a world where basically it's like you are never lonely, ever. I guess would have some upsides. What do you think, Jenny?
Yeah, I agree with Aaron. I think it did a great job of humanizing the Borg, and it really changes the game on how I perceive the Borg. I think it does beg this question of, from what perspective is the Borg this horrible, destructive force of nature? Because it sounds like, it could be. On one level, it is really scary that, people's individuality is taken away, and if that's not something they want, it's really terrible, like it was for Picard. But then for this other person who was fully assimilated, it seemed like it was, in some ways, comfortable. I mean, it's, non-consensual, so that aspect of it is pretty dark. But, I mean, it really makes you wonder, where are the ethical lines of wiping out a species that is filled with millions of people that are potentially enjoying their existence, versus, these just mindless drones.
Or drones, right. But, at the end, if he had his way, he says he wouldn't go back. He doesn't want to go back. He only goes back because he wants to protect them all. So even though he's suffering from loneliness, once he regains his individuality, he doesn't want to go back. So I mean, on some level, there is something about it. Maybe like you never suffer loneliness, but apparently he gets to some point where it's like, but I don't want to go back to that. Which also kind of muddies the water a bit, because does that also imply that like there are basically billions of Borg drones who, given the opportunity, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, I don't know that this was intended, but when I was watching the scene between Picard and Hugh, and him realizing that Hugh is an individual, if in some ways that almost changes the war with the Borg from, we need to stop the Borg and eliminate the Borg, to actually now there are these millions of people that we need to save. And it's no longer, universe versus hive mind, but universe on like a rescue mission for all these people that still have the potential.
Yeah.
to be somewhat restored to their previous selves, or at least, individuals at all.
Yeah, this episode definitely kind of muddies the water because in the first couple appearances, they're basically portrayed as like, oh my God, like we are all going to die, or, and they're terrifying. And like I said, like there's this kind of force of nature thing. But this one now, and it's easier to deal with on some, I don't know, if you're trying to ethically or morally justify something. If you're dealing with a force of nature, it's a lot easier to justify any decision. It's like, it's just a thing. But now that there is this clear understanding, it's like underneath all of that is people, victims, essentially.
I do agree. I think it's Picard dealing with some residual trauma too. He tries all kinds of tactics to avoid seeing the Borg face to face.
Yeah.
Or one-on-one.
I guess exploring that element, how do we think this episode does in exploring trauma in general, but certainly like Picard and Guinan's trauma? Because that's, I don't know if that's like what the episode is about, but it's certainly like another big theme they're exploring in this one.
I think it's a pretty accurate portrayal of facing a demon, coming to terms with something that you realize, most of the time you realize it's like some underlying feeling you were still holding on to inside. That's rather easy to let go of once you find it. But it takes facing that thing that you were so afraid of in the first place, right? I think they do a good job there, particularly with Jean-Luc. A little bit with Geordi. And overall, like, you don't really see much change with like the smaller characters with Worf, but there is like a general change in sentiment in the episode.
I thought that it was a good portrayal of how, our own biases or our own trauma can impact our judgment and make it hard for us to see things clearly. I did think, though, that it feels hugely optimistic if this is supposed to be, a model for how recovery from trauma and being able to think objectively happens. In my experience, I think that if this were to have been a real situation, there's almost no way that Guinan and Picard would have been able to make that leap from fear to acceptance that quickly. I think that, this sets it up kind of perfectly in the sense that the Borg is so different than expected.
Right.
So much more emotional. But I do think, like, in my experience of trauma and like working with people that have trauma, it can be an incredibly long and like arduous process to see objective reality when your judgment is clouded by trauma.
Mm. Do you think, because I think I would also agree, like if this was like in a more modern, realistic setting, like I could see part of like this episode being a tragedy in the sense that those two, characters facing trauma never change their mind. And, they can't, but they're, come to terms with it. Because, they're both kind of coming at it as if they're like, oh, I'm fine. I'm just trying to rationally explain to you what the case is, when clearly there's like some emotional rationalization going on. But I'm curious, what do you guys think? Like, so this takes place in like Star Trek times when there's like this kind of culture of everyone supports each other. There's no poverty. There's no hate. Everyone is kind of there for each other. Society more or less is there for you. You have all the mental health resources you could possibly want. Do you think in a society like that, where there is just such a inbred cultural value to kind of be better, that people that would be enough to surmount that for someone? Just be like, okay, well, I have to be better, so I'm going to be better.
Maybe for some, I would see it like creating just a even bigger counterculture. Or like, it makes me wonder how much of the Starfleet ideal is just like a facade, and how much are we still just the people we were in the 20th century, but in the 23rd century. Right.
I mean, right. I mean, they're this close to genocide in this episode. Pretty hardcore, shocking thing for the Federation to even consider, let alone Picard and crew.
It's something that the Federation tends to consider, once every few seasons. That's problematic.
Should we kill this entire species?
No, thank God. The answer was no again.
I was going to say that in regards to your question of, would this like evolved society with all this mental health care and like all your resources and whatever, like would that make things like trauma much easier to get past because of this idea of a culture of, improvement, self-improvement? And while I definitely think that would be helpful, and I do think a culture of, openness and like psychological flexibility or, change and forgiveness or things like that, I think those things would certainly help. I think the reality is that things like trauma are an experience that are not logical and are not necessarily social constructs. I think trauma is something that like lives in the body.
Yeah.
And that even the most evolved society, I don't think can bypass that reality of the animal experience. Although certainly I think it could be like pushed
helpful.
ahead. Yeah.
It could make it worse in a lot of ways too, like all these rigid ideals. And
Oh,
having to
like
live
toxic
with the trauma
positivity
and,
or
Yeah.
having to face that and like live in all this positivity all the time. We're such an evolved species, and you're like, well, if that's true, then why do I feel this way, and why did this happen to me? That would make that so much more. That would compound that, right?
Yeah. It is very interesting. Yeah. I could, if this were, even though I have lots of feelings about modern Star Trek, but a lot of these modern Star Trek shows, they will explore a concept over like 10 episodes. And then they can kind of let things, because one of the things with this show is like they have to do all this in essentially an episode. So I feel like to some degree there is some creative liberty kind of going on here. I could see in a more realistic sense if, like, say this was like a plot line that were happening over the course of like a 10 episode season, and you saw, say, like characters like Picard or Guy, like they were spending a whole season, and one of the background things is like they were continually working with Hugh to eventually send him back and infect him. And I could see in a more realistic sense showing Picard and Guinan over the course of a much longer time coming to terms with like, maybe I should not do this and maybe I'm not thinking objectively, but this all happens really quick. Yeah.
There are many hurdles.
I mean, you can give it the benefit of the doubt because they have to wrap all this up, and they got 45 minutes to tell this story.
Yeah.
Even like in a movie, it'd have more room to breathe than say just you got 45 minutes.
They have just enough time to post some questions.
There it is.
And maybe leave you with a little bit of bias, and then send you on your way.
Getting to our kind of like the question we asked earlier and kind of tying in with this episode, because in the end they kind of come to the conclusion that this is the wrong thing to do, and they kind of portray it as if like Picard was emotionally compromised and wasn't thinking clearly. Is there any validity to the idea of actually using Hugh to destroy the Borg that way, though, how they intended?
Yes, I think the idea is valid to pretty much everyone until they realize that Hugh, and thus everyone in the Borg, actually does have feelings and an experience of their own.
Do you think, because sometimes when I'm watching this episode, I'm not exactly clear what case they're making. And if I'm honest, there is always some part of me that's like, is this actually the right thing to do? In the sense of like, but we know the Borg are going to keep essentially assimilating and destroying, and billions of people have suffered throughout the galaxy because of the Borg. And yes, basically, I do think you have to own up to the fact that you are essentially committing genocide, especially now that the Borg are people. But it's like, is there a case to be made here that the stakes are so high for, like, say, the entire galaxy, that wiping out the Borg would be the right thing to do.
Well, how do you define the right thing to do? By what perspective? Is there a universal right and wrong?
If we're looking at right and wrong as, I don't know, like the well-being of the most number of people, I mean, you can get into really sticky problems real quick. But if we're just speaking really, and going into like the idea of like, say the trillions, the countless trillions of life in the galaxy versus the billions of life of the Borg, you know, is there a greater good that needs to be considered here, even beyond? Because part of my question is like, do they come to this decision because they're worried about Hugh, and is Hugh's individual autonomy worth this, or is it the fact that all the Borg are people? I've never been entirely clear what they're trying to say with the episode and why they come to this decision. Is it Hugh as an individual or the Borg as people?
Majority probably just Hugh.
I think it's just Hugh as the individual, because they literally never mention
the rest
it being anything else. And in that case, I think that that's kind of a weak argument if it's literally just, oh, well, we're willing to sacrifice the rest of the universe for Hugh. But I don't really think that that's what they're saying or doing.
Because that's what it seems to me, is like they're mostly concerned for Hugh as a person, and there is some part of me that's like, is that because they send him back regardless, you know? And it's like, was this worth it when they had a chance to maybe once and for all end the Borg? Because Picard has this. There's an interesting, I don't know, maybe it's a flip side rationalization. He has that little speech at the end where he's like, and perhaps his sense of individuality will infect the Borg, and perhaps that's the most pernicious program at all. And I think you, Jennie, were like, like that is an extremely optimistic, hopeful outcome. Because like you yourself said, it's like, don't the Borg assimilate individuals all the time? And and this episode establishes they all do have a sense of individuality beneath it all.
But then Hugh did say at the end, the Borg does not assimilate individuals, the Borg assimilates societies, or civilizations. So I don't know if somehow there's a meaningful distinction between a mass assimilation versus an individual assimilation. But it definitely does seem just kind of like a justification of, what they're doing.
Yeah, it does seem kind of computery. They have their objective that the drones are sent down to do, and if there is something else, if it's not like part of the main objective, which is assimilate civilizations, right, then they're not going to worry about it. It's just not part of the routine.
So maybe there's something to stand on there.
Yeah,
a little bike kickstand.
It works out. Science works out.
It gets into this kind of like murky territory also of like, this is not entirely an accurate definition of these terms, but morality tends to concern itself more with like individual, I don't know, right and wrong, and ethics. A system of ethics tends to be more of like a societal or a group sense of like good and evil kind of a thing. And so this episode, like, and that's not exactly 100%. So this kind of episode gets into this tricky territory of like, is the moral thing the ethical thing to do, or vice versa? Because like I think everyone would agree the moral thing to do is to not use Hugh in that way and to respect his individual autonomy. But it's also like, is that the overall big picture ethical thing to do here? It kind of gets in that really blurry territory between the two. It's like, what is the right thing to do?
I think you're also asking a question between what is the difference between ethics and logic. Because ethics are usually based on some kind of code of ethical principles, which is not necessarily aligned with logic or consequences. I think this question that we're always asking ourselves between right and wrong or good and eagle. Between right and wrong or good and evil is such a false dichotomy, because the reality is, I mean, at least I believe there's no such thing as right and wrong, as much as there are consequences to all our actions, and you have to weigh which consequences are worth it to you.
Mm-hmm.
But looking for the black and white answer of one is good and one is bad is almost always
fool's errand.
Yeah.
Do you think this episode ends up on a black and white perspective on this, or do you think it kind of does still have like a kind of, I hope this was the right thing to do?
Oh, I think it seems very gray area to me.
Yeah.
Very much hoping that maybe they'll have another chance to fight this battle against the Borg, but that it's not going to be this time in this way, because this way feels like the consequences are not tolerable. Consequence being betraying or losing Hugh.
Yeah.
We could convince Hugh to do it for us.
How hard would it have been to be like, Hugh, you know how you love being an individual and how we don't want to be assimilated? Let's talk about that. Do you think maybe we should stop this thing?
A huge part of being an individual is being cool. And if you want to be super cool, you wipe out the Borg. We're all going to wipe out the Borg over here.
Everyone's doing it, Hugh.
You as an individual do what you want to do.
You mean you won't wipe out the Borg? Weak.
Okay. Well, we're all going to go to 10 forward.
We have to speak real quick about Jonathan Del Arco, who plays Hugh, who I think is the highlight of it. Like, it's a really good episode. I think it's really well written too.
He's great at acting with almost a completely straight face the whole time.
He does a really good job. I feel like this would have been an easy role to fuck up. I think he nails it.
Very subtle.
It's all in his eye, in his human eye.
Right. He's got a lot. He's acting like he's covered up with all these prosthetics. He's got half his face to work with. But by the end, it's like, you would be a monster if you weren't, Hugh. Right. He gets you just so wrapped up in like his plight, and how could you not empathize and be sympathetic toward him?
And his creepy yellowy eyes.
His holographic eye. It's so cool. I love it. Yeah, really good makeup. He does a great job. Kudos to Jonathan Del Arco. All right, any final thoughts on Borg, Jenny?
They made Hugh's abs out of control.
Hugh's abs need to calm down.
His Borg ab. A lot of them have it. Just like the six. Like, is that necessary?
But not all of them.
Aaron, any final thoughts on Borg?
Eat protein for recovery.
There you go.
Only chest day, then core.
I was trying to think of a pun, and I don't even know if this is a pun, but it's really bad.
Okay.
I can't. I'm not going to be able to say it. It's too stupid.
Do it.
I'm not going to be able to say
You can do it.
It's too stupid.
I have faith.
You got this.
I won't look at you.
I can't. I'll try. Borg existence is futile. Or maybe Borg existence is not futile.
What did you say? Borg existence is not futile. Jerry, great script. We have a few notes.
Okay.
Borg
I guess I
existence
will
needs a
not
hyphen
be
here.
coming back for the next one.
Other than that, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I think this is a great episode. I always like watching this one. I always like. I think Star Trek's at its best when it's kind of doing these, like, even the Borg, and this is so Star Trek, they create this like implacable force of nature, pure evil force, and Star Trek still goes out of its way to humanize them. Yeah, it's so Star Trek-y, just like, even like an enemy you think deserves no humanization, they make sure to also humanize. Very Star Trek-y. And this is one of those episodes that you will probably see in a lot of people's top 10, but maybe not everyone, but a lot of people would put this on their top 10 kind of episode. The cast, the crew, they all really thought this one turned out really well. There are some fans who don't like this one just because they think it does defang the Borg, and they don't, that they were scarier when they were just this kind of force of nature kind of a thing. I'm like,
Those people have no brains.
plebes. I sure, but it's always more interesting to add depth than it is just to be some big scary monster.
Agreed. Especially with villains.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, my baby.
Welcome.
Taking a look at a good hard episode of Star Trek with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you, Jennie, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show. Borg existence is not futile.
Aaron, as always, thank you.
Thanks, Jaron. Love you.
Pleasure as always. And thank you, everyone at home, for listening. We hope you enjoyed our coverage of iBorg. And if not, we do have a complaints department you can send your complaints to at storiedstartrek@gmail.com. That's storiedstartrek@gmail.com.
All your complaints.
Next week, we're going to be jumping into some TNG Season 6. Getting into the later seasons now. We're going to be jumping into TNG Season 6 with True Q.
Oh, God.
True Q.
Titles.
Wrath
The Q titles.
Oh, they're so bad. Yes, as you may have guessed by the title, this means that everyone's favorite nemesis, Q, will be making a return. And we'll get to be seeing how the show continues exploring his character in the later years of the show. And also, that means that our good friend Jake Barnes will be returning once again, as he has been coming on to talk about all of the TNG Q episodes. Always love having Jake on. All right, looking forward to Jake and Q next time. Thank you again, Jennie.
Buddy poop.
Thank you again, Aaron.
Ribbit.
Ribbit. Oh my God! There goes the trench. There goes the trench coat. And we will see you all next time. Hopefully, not being plugged in back into the Borg Collective after regaining your individuality. Bye. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to share us your own Star Trek story, you can email us at storiedstartrek@gmail.com, or you can visit our Discord server. You can find us by clicking on the link in the show description.